with becoming more confident, we're going to hit one of those really scary things. Yep. Talking to other people. Yep. Strangers in particular can be a little bit challenging. You know that thing where you have the awkward silence and you think, do I say anything? Do I not? Well, to be honest, doesn't matter if you do or don't. Because if somebody doesn't talk and they're sitting near you, chances are they feel just as embarrassed and awkward as you do. It's true. But what do you talk about? That's the other thing. It's sort of like, that's part of it. But the other part of it is, are you going to say something to offend the other person? Because you don't know anything about them. You might say, oh, well, I like Arsenal. Who do you like? And they might go, I hate football with a vengeance, you see. So you don't want to make that mistake. My way of dealing with it was I started off by talking about the weather. I've not yet not yet come across anybody who was offended by the weather. I mean, you say to somebody, oh, nice day, isn't it? And they might go, well, actually, no, there's a little cloud in the sky and I'm not very happy with it. You say, that doesn't happen. People are like, oh, yeah. And most, well, especially if you're English, and I say English rather than British because the English are worse than this than the rest of the Isles, is you tend to talk about the weather and you can have a conversation of complete rot for about half hour on it. And by that time, with the small talk and what have you, you might get to a stage where you might go, oh, I happen to like a little bit of football. And they might go, I don't. And then you can move on to something else. Or they might go, yeah, I love it, you see. And then you've got a conversation. Because with conversation, we're usually fine if we're talking about something we know about. Say you're interested in emo music, for example. Though some people might say, hey, that's a contradiction. See, that's where you can get a problem. But just say happen that's something you know a lot about and you're very interested and passionate about it. And somebody gets talking to you about it and you'll go on for hours and hours and hours. So how do you do that with conversations you know nothing about? Well, what I've tended to do over the years, and it's taken me time, is I learn one or two things about every subject. And generally speaking, if you know two things about anything, most people think you know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yes, so the Tories, you know? Oh, yeah, they're in government, yeah, Prime Minister and all that, down the street. So, see, sounds like I know what I'm on about. Well, almost, you know. But the other part is being able to laugh. And the most important thing is, if somebody says something to you and they say something you really don't know anything about, it's okay to say you don't know, because most people would be glad to tell you about it. And you might even learn a few things. Like they say, oh, Tories and what have you, and you might go, I know very little about politics. So what do you think? And then they'll tell you, because people's favourite subject, generally speaking, is themselves. So if you don't know what to say on something, just ask them their opinion, and they can do the talking, and all you've got to do is listen. And then when you've had sort of finished the conversation, and you part your separate ways, the other person will say to other people, God, he was very interesting to talk to. Fact is, they did most of the talking, you see. And it really not a big deal, you see. The point is that if you're stuck for words, ask them. And you don't have to be right on anything. And if you don't know something, say, I don't know. I mean, I often say to people when they say things, I say, never heard of that, don't know about that. And they go, oh, and they'll tell you. And people love telling you. They really do. So don't worry about not having something to say. Just ask questions. And that works wonders. And if you're worried about the right question, just say, I know nothing. Could you tell me a bit about it? And with that, off they go. So that's how you talk to people, including strangers. And it gets easier. The other problem is that when you're shy, like I used to be, if you sort of don't talk and you're kind of like, and trying to avoid the situation, what happens is they don't think you're shy. They think you're aloof and distant. They think, oh, he's snotty, or she's a snotty cow. Well, that's not the case at all. You're just like terrified, maybe. Well, I know I used to be. But yeah, on the other hand, if you're the kind of person who just doesn't like talking to people because you don't like people, just ignore what I've said here and just carry on ignoring them. Anyway, have a good day. Ruff.